So what do you want?
What do I want? I want to use my degree for good. And in general.
I kind of meant like a muffin or a latte.
I want a job with a generous work-from-grocery-store policy.
You are here a lot.
Debbie, please, I'm working.
I want a job that will change the world.
Ma'am, this is a drive-thru.
And some nuggets.
With LinkedIn's new AI-powered job search, you can find roles that match your unique skills so you can dare to discover more. Visit linkedin.com/jobs to learn more.
Okay, 3, 2. Welcome to Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein. Thanks so much for joining us today. And of course, thank you to our sponsor of Sweet Serve Behavioral Health. We are so grateful for their support and all the wonderful work they do in this community. Now, today's episode it feels particularly important, and frankly, it's personal today. And if you've been feeling snappy, foggy, overstimulated, or maybe like you're one spilled cup away from crying in a pantry, you're not alone. And it's not being a bad parent. You might actually be burned out. And this is tricky because it can look and feel a lot like stress or maybe just really tired, which is how burnout kind of showed up for me lately. After the holidays, I remember saying to my husband one evening, I am so tired at a level where I feel it in my bones, and just like stupid tired, because I was also like really mentally foggy. Like my brain wasn't clicking. It was being on autopilot. Burnout is what happens when the demands keep coming and the recharge never does. Today's episode we're calling You're Not Failing, You're Fried, Understanding Parental Burnout, and we are talking about why it is happening and what actually helps. Psychiatrist Dr. Jeffrey Barkin is our guest today, and boy, I'm telling you, he has some eye-opening honesty to reflect on here and some really good advice. Dr. Barkin breaks down the difference between burnout, anxiety, and depression and explains what this chronic stress can do to you, and shares practical and realistic, that's the key, realistic tools to help us reset without adding, like another thing on the to-do list. So, all right, let's take a breath, maybe unclench our jaws, drop our shoulders, and check it out. Dr. Barkin, thank you so much for being on the podcast again. Always such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is a topic I'm really excited to dive into because I think it impacts so many of us, this sort of deep mental exhaustion because we have so many things going on. But before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about you and where you are in your parenting journey.
Sure. So I'm a doctor. I'm a practicing psychiatrist in Portland, Maine. Yeah. And my wife Joan and I raised 2 kids. We have a 35-year-old daughter, and she's having a baby. And we have a 32-year-old son, and they're both married. So that's where we're at. But we've gotten an opportunity to go through every single phase of parenting and have experienced all of the ups and all of the downs, all of the joys and the sorrows, which is normal. That's what all of us can expect. Yeah. But our world has become so stressful that how do we maintain a good parenting journey, right, within the confines of all the inputs that we're getting that are so stressful?
There are so many inputs. And I think that that's ultimately a key to what we're discussing here. But let's just talk about that feeling of, I know, especially after the holidays, I remember saying to my husband a couple of days, like at the end of the day, like, I am so tired, like down to my bones tired. Not just like I didn't get a good night's sleep tired, but I am exhausted.
Right.
Why are so many parents feeling that deep sense of exhaustion?
The world now is radically different than when us parents were children. Specifically, our kids are spending 50% less time in person than when we were kids. Think about that. That's profound. That means that we have to spend more time with our kids. So as parents, we're more involved than ever.
Wait a minute. I'm having wait a minute. So kids are home more, they're with their parents 50% more than when we were kids?
They're not with their peers. 50% decrease compared to 20 years ago. One generation, when you and I were kids.
So parents are just naturally then plugged in. So when we talk about being the
Right.
cruise ship director and feeling like that, that's very real.
Well, we've heard the term helicopter parenting,
Yes.
where parents hover, because our kids are doing more and more activities, even though they're spending less and less time in person together. A lot of activities can be online, and young kids often need supervision. People have tough time with childcare, so more people are parenting at home or have a parent at home. So a lot of attention goes on the kids. Even in two-parent households, we didn't have the burden of our time put onto our parents. Our parents had their own lives.
Stop right there. The burden of time placed
Mhm.
on parents.
Mhm.
Yes,
Right.
that is so real. And I do remember going out as a kid and just like running out of the house, and it's like back at dinner when it was dark, you just came and somehow you filled your own time.
That
Now-
was my schedule. I didn't
Yes.
depend upon my parents. We had dinner together as a
Yeah.
family. That was great. My father would often read me a book at night, and that was really it. We would do things together on the weekends, but it wasn't a helicopter effect. I was expected to do things on my own. I heard a new term recently,
Okay.
snowplow parenting.
What is that?
That's when parents push every obstacle out of the way for their children because they feel
Yeah.
anxious. The parents feel anxious, the kids feel anxious. So rather than allow the kids to do their thing, the parents take on that role. I'm sure you've heard of parents who actually call people who interview their kids for jobs
Whoa.
Right?
Whoa.
to try to get every obstacle out of the way, which
Yeah.
puts pressure on not just the kids, but the parents.
Do you think part of it too is just wanting to do for our kids what we did not have done for us?
Maybe. There was a pediatrician years and years ago, I mean, really years ago, named Donald Winnicott. Really worth looking up. Wikipedia, Donald Winnicott.
Okay.
And he came up with the concept of the good enough parent, the good enough mother. And it's kind of like exercise, right? Probably it's good to get exercise, but at a certain point, you get diminishing returns.
Oh.
So if you're doing 150 or 200 minutes a week of exercise, going to 225 isn't going to confer a whole lot of benefits.
Yeah.
Same thing with raising kids. Putting all of your time to your kids and spending none of it with yourself, none of it with your partner, none of it with your spouse. And I see this is corrosive. It's toxic. It causes stress to go up. So when you describe exhaustion, it's because you're putting out, you're helping others. But in that equation, your own needs for sleep, for rest, and play don't get met.
Well, it sometimes feels like 50 tabs are open at any one time. I've talked about it on the podcast. My husband and I, we have 3 kids. I work full time. My husband works full time. We have a house. We're kind of in that sandwich generation
Yep.
where we're caring for our parents, making sure they're all set while also caring for young children. And that analogy, somebody told me a while ago, and I was like, that's how it feels. I'm constantly putting reminders in my phone because I will literally forget something that I just told myself to do.
Right. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
And Post-it notes.
And it has to be written down or pinging me on my phone
Yep.
to remind me. Is that just how life is for a 30, 40, 50-something-year-old today?
If we shape it that way, yes. Do we have to shape it that way? Absolutely not. There are some things that we can begin to become mindful and intentional about that change the pattern and make life less stressful. And I would say, and I'm going to talk a lot about strategies that have worked for myself and for my patients. But the big one is give up multitasking to the extent that you can.
Well, wait, stop, right? Wait, stand by. How on earth would you give up multitasking?
Well, think about this. If you are going to do multiple tasks at the same time, the more tasks that you take on simultaneously, the less accurate your output is. It's a choice, quality or quantity.
Yeah.
So you mentioned tabs.
Mhm.
Let's say you're working on a computer project and you have 50 tabs open and you have a deadline and you're going to run through tab 1, tab 2, all these tabs. You're not a machine. You're going to focus on one tab. You're going to get it to a point, and then you're going to move on to the next. And we have to begin to embrace that, not just with how we work on a report on our computer, but with all of the behaviors that we're doing, whether it be spending time with friends, whether it be times playing sports, which is a great way to decreasing any stress or anxiety. You don't want to be working when you're playing pickleball. And it sounds silly, But there are people who don't silence their phones on a pickleball
Yeah,
court. So
and in between shots, they just check their text real quick or whatever it would be.
And it's something as simple as going on airplane mode or turning the ringer off so you could focus on the game.
So, because I want to get into all these strategies, but like, how can we tell as parents? Because there are times that we are just tired. There are times where we're near burnout. So is there a way to tell the difference between, boy, I just really need better sleep, which often sleep is one of the first things to go when you're feeling stressed out, but versus a burnout situation where, maybe even additional help would be needed or a change just needs to be made?
Absolutely. When you're finding that you're not liking people, when you're finding that the tasks are causing resentment, when you're finding yourself irritable and exhausted, it's time to ask for help. That's, I would say, the best strategy. Ask a family member, ask a friend if you can afford it, ask somebody to come in and pay them. The more you can offload, the more you can decrease stress. And I realize that offloading work might mean asking somebody for a favor and risking them saying no, or it might cost you money. There are downsides to everything, but it will decrease your stress.
Okay. So one of the things that I think about too is stress and sleep. And we've heard so much. It seems like particularly lately, I've seen a lot of headlines about how important sleep is. And if you are feeling this exhaustion, instead of getting up and going to do your morning workout or getting up and doing something, to prioritize sleep. How does sleep impact the feelings around burnout?
Sleep is so foundational. I consider sleep to be one of the holy trinity, if you will, nutrition, exercise, and sleep. And we know that during good sleep, deep sleep, the brain clears out toxic chemicals like beta amyloid and tau, that can predispose to Alzheimer's disease. So we actually need sleep to remove, it's called the glymphatic system in our brain, these toxic substances. We have to make efforts to sleep well. And I would, if I were to write a postcard to myself, but to go 30 years in the past, it would be go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. The downside is you're a little boring on the weekends. But if you think about it, if you stay out really late Saturday night and sleep in really long Sunday, how are you going to feel the rest of the week? Pretty bad.
Yeah.
So anything that you could do to consolidate sleep by going to bed, waking up at the same time, really, really good. The other thing about sleep is we've become addicted to our devices.
Yes.
Right? And even low levels of light are enough to stimulate wakefulness. So the amount of light coming off an iPhone or an Android or an iPad is enough to keep us awake. Keep the devices in another room. Also, it interrupts sleep because you're thinking. It's not allowing your brain to relax, to do what it needs to do to store memory and to clear toxic substances. So sleep is absolutely foundational to health. It's as important as exercise and nutrition.
I have found, and I think we're all guilty of it sometimes, is like taking your phone and before you go to bed, you just kind of, that's how you kind of veg out for a few minutes. But that does impact the way you sleep. Like going into 2026, I kind of said to myself, I'm going to put the phone away. That's not how I'm going to go to bed, essentially, and read a book. And I'll tell you, I actually fall asleep much better by reading 10, 15 pages of a book versus scrolling on Instagram.
Año nuevo, los mismos Extra Value Meals en McDonald's. Ahora te puedes llevar 2 snack wraps y papitas y una bebida mediana por solo $8. Solo por tiempo limitado. Precios y participación pueden variar. Los precios pueden ser más altos en Hawaii, Alaska y California y con entrega.
What I do, I'm glad that you said what you do so we could trade notes, is I do my last pass where I check my emails and texts. Because I'm a doctor, I need to be responsible. And I do that around 9:30. Then I'm in bed and I read. Or I'll watch a TV show, but something with no conflict.
Oh, actually, you know what? Schitt's Creek. Have you ever?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, that's what we're currently on. Just something light and funny.
Northern Exposure.
Oh, haven't seen that one. I know what it is.
Oh,
but
Northern
I haven't
Exposure.
Got
It's so relaxing. And Janine Turner and Rob Moreau, who plays Dr. Fleischman, have come out with a podcast where they dissect every single episode. So if you really want to relax and go to sleep, you could listen to the podcast or watch the show.
Just something easy. In other words, just something easy, something you don't have to think about. I remember, I mean, this is years ago and kind of going off topic, but I remember when we first got into Ozark years ago, and we would watch an episode, we would put the kids down and like, oh, let's watch an episode of Ozark. And it was so intense. And so like, there was so much anxiety around it. I was like, I can't do this right before bed anymore.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
So even something like news, I get a lot of news consumption, and here I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
I tell my patients, limit your news consumption because news can be very toxic and corrosive. I'm a total hypocrite on this, but I do my news pass in the morning.
Yeah.
Because that's when I want to be stimulated. There's this concept in sleep medicine of intrusions, and a lot of things can cause intrusions. Light, a noisy pet, sounds, screens, and to have good deep sleep, and it's the deep sleep, we need to have a good environment. 68, 69 degrees, comfortable, minimal distractions is ideal. We can't make perfect the enemy of the good. Sometimes things wake us up. I have a wonderful toy poodle. He has a small bladder, right? So we have to make choices, but sleep absolutely foundational. And when you don't get good sleep, we're more prone to irritability, more prone to burnout, and more prone to depression.
Well, let's talk about burnout too. When it comes to just our relationships, how have you found with your patients that burnout, this mental exhaustion, can affect relationships? I think ultimately partner with your partner, but also just friends and other family.
In a massive way.
Yeah.
So the sort of key things that you see are irritability and distraction. And distraction can lead to withdrawal. So imagine somebody who has so much going on that like you're talking to your husband or your wife, but you're not really paying attention. You're like, that's good, honey. That's good. As you're like multitasking.
Exactly.
Not a good thing.
Yeah.
So one thing that you can do when you're feeling that is tune into the person. Give them
Put the phone down, shut down the laptop.
Undivided attention. And we live right now. Our economy is so changed. Like, remember the days when oil was like a big deal?
Yeah.
And then it was like coins and gold and people collected stamps. And now it's information and social media.
Yeah.
Now it's all about attention.
Yeah.
The whole media ecosystem is designed to pull our attention.
Well, it's funny because I've heard an analogy that if they're not selling you something, you are the commodity.
Right.
Essentially. Like
if you're not paying
it,
you're the product.
You're the product.
Right.
So, that
double-edged sword. So it's great to be able to use social media or whatever on your iPhone or device to unwind, but earlier on. The problem is if you're going to bed at 9, which is roughly when I go to bed, if you're looking at your iPhone at 8:30, you're going to be stimulated. If you're watching a show with a lot of conflict, it's sort of contrary to your goal of going to sleep.
Right.
Yeah. And I love stressful shows. So this is the hypocrite in me, but I watch my stressful shows earlier or on the weekends.
Yeah.
Just a strategy. But my days are filled with a lot of stress like yours, right? A lot of deadlines, patients, serious issues. So I find, and this is another tip for your viewers and listeners, is that the more things that we can do, especially when we're under stress for ourselves, to put a little pleasure in, goes a long way. And
how do we do that? Let's talk about that, because how do we set time aside for some self-care?
I'm so glad that we're going in this direction. During COVID, I came up with a strategy, and it's super, super simple. You make a list of 5 things that you like to do, and everybody is going to be different. But one of those 5 things is to connect with a friend, not by text, but by phone.
Phone or face-to-face.
Or face.
Yeah.
Text doesn't count. And then 4 other things, items. And on particularly stressful days, and this sounds like more stress.
Yeah.
Do more of those fun items.
But to your point, it sounds like, oh, I've got to check off more things to do on my stressful days. But you're saying that's going to give you a reset.
It's going to give you a reset. And people forget that it'll give you a reset. Instead, they go, oh, well, that's another obligation. No, it isn't. One of the things that I love to do when I can is to take a walk in the woods.
Oh, so peaceful. Oh,
and
my
here
gosh.
we are in Maine.
Just thinking about that right now sounds like a little slice of heaven.
But you could take a walk in the woods for 5 minutes. And the effect of this garden bathing is what it's called, is profound.
Yeah.
It's neurologically very similar to what antidepressants do. It reduces anxiety, reduces sadness, and you don't need a high dose, and there are really no side effects if you walk carefully. So simply getting out, that's one of my 5. And I know that even a brief walk really decreases the stress level. Having a pet, spending time with a pet, decreases stress level. Being intimate with a partner really decreases stress level. As a psychiatrist, I get to talk about these concepts, and maybe it's a little scary for viewers or listeners to hear, but these are things that we're all tuned into, and relationships suffer. And when somebody's relationship begins to suffer, that's a sign of burnout. To your question.
Yeah.
So when you're not spending time with your significant other, you're not having time to have those special intimate moments.
Laugh and
Right. And again, here's a tip. If you don't schedule it, it doesn't happen.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
If you don't schedule it, it doesn't happen. So schedule those special intimate moments with your partner. You and your relationship and your partner will love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think about the kids, right? So like, how can we offload some of this age appropriately to the kids? To your point that we are scheduling more, we're way more involved in the everyday and literally everything that has to do with our kids' lives. So how do we offload some of that mental load age appropriately to our kids? Because often just as a mom, I kind of feel like the memory keeper of the house. Like, well, okay, Monday, this is what we're doing here. Tuesday, this is what we do after school here. Don't forget, this is the day you have to turn in your permission slip for whatever field trip is coming. So how do we offload some of that to the kids?
I love that question.
Okay.
The first thing is to realize that it's not your job. It's not your husband's job to do everything for kids. It's their job over time to learn how to do more and more, and they get confident.
Absolutely.
When I was raised, my parents loved me and I loved my parents, but I was autonomous when I was very young.
Yeah.
I walked to school every day and back.
At what age? Just out of curiosity. Yeah. Like that is mind blowing today.
Well, the saying is a 13-year-old used to be a babysitter and now a 13-year-old needs a babysitter. But what I would say to you is a 13-year-old can be a great babysitter.
Absolutely.
And that kids need to have tasks offloaded onto them.
Yes.
And they feel good about being able to do those tasks. That's what develops resiliency and competence in our children. So the more that us parents have expectations of our kids, and the more the kids hit the expectations, the more they grow and feel good. So the assumption set that you have to be the boss and do everything, challenge that, because you don't. And in fact, even pets love to do tasks. I've noticed that. And the more that I do, the less others do. The less I do, the more others do. And it could be something as simple as reading a book. I think books are really great things to read. And book reading has gone way down. I believe in this thing called the Century Club, which is, can you read 100 books a year?
Oof.
And for young children, it could be a little picture book.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be War and Peace for a 4-year-old. And you develop these habits early on. And when kids learn how to read, when they're older and they're reading, they're not tugging on you.
Yes. Yeah. Finding activities to do. But actually, I kind of love that. Like maybe even having like a page that has 100 lines and making check marks so you see your progress throughout the year. I actually think my 7-year-old would absolutely eat that up.
People love that.
100%.
Parents and kids. And then at dinner, rather than talk about banal things.
Yeah, like how was your day? You know, who'd you have lunch with? You know, like trying to get anything out of the teenagers in particular.
And here you have a nice way to project it.
Yeah.
What you reading? Oh, what'd you think about that?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that book too.
Yeah.
Right? So it really can shape dinner. And those are things that decrease stress immediately. Micro habits.
Micro habits.
Micro
yes.
habits. Great little book, Atomic Habits.
Oh, yes, I've read it.
It's a funny name because you'd think that it's a big change, like an atomic bomb.
No, but it's the simplest little things. I remember the part where he talks about going to the gym and it's like, just put on your shoes. Just say you're going to walk into the gym.
Yep.
Like you don't have to go, I'm going to start out with an hour-long run or walk or anything. It's just doing those small steps to make big changes.
decrease the expectations of oneself so we don't feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And one of my gripes about New Year's resolutions is that people tend to have New Year's resolutions that are too lofty. They'll go into the new year trying to achieve those goals, and they won't achieve them because they're too large goals. And if you could break a goal down into itsy bitsy little pieces like Atomic Habits suggests, you're definitely more inclined to complete those goals.
So if there was one takeaway today for parents who are listening to this and, saying, boy, this resonates, I need to make a change, what would that be?
Here's what it would be. You're not selfish for taking care of yourself. And the most important thing to remember is you have to take care of yourself. Remember those nested dolls, those Russian dolls,
course, yeah.
babushka
So
dolls? Yeah, the inner one, that's you. The outer one, that the one that holds the little inner one that you can't divide, maybe that's you and your husband. The third one is maybe you, your husband, and your kids, and it goes outwards, family and friends. But in the center is you. You have to get your needs met physically. So that means you have to do your walk. You have to do your exercise. You have to get your needs met emotionally. You have to spend time with your friends. You have to spend time with your spouse, your significant other. And you have to get your needs met mentally. Read and push your mind. Go in directions like listening to music or seeing movies. Challenge yourself. And when you incorporate those three components into your daily life, your stress level goes down.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Barkin, thank you so much. So much to think about, too. And I also want to mention we'll have more resources on our website, which is wgme.com/raisingme. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Adrienne.
I got to tell you, I am so grateful for this episode and really enjoyed talking with Dr. Barkin. And hopefully for you, if you're feeling these things that we talked about, that maybe you feel a little more seen and you understand a little bit more what you're going through. A few takeaways that stood out to me, though, there were many things I've sort of reflected on since talking to Dr. Barkin. But first of all, burnout is real, right? Like, it is a signal you have been running on past empty for simply too long. Also, snappy and numb, yeah, that can be burnout. It doesn't always look like crying, though, let's be real, it also can very much include that, but it also can be detaching, brain fog, or feeling just nothing. And that brain fog, I am telling you, that happens to me way more than I'd like to admit. And small resets matter. You don't need a whole life overhaul here. You need some tiny moments of relief that really add up. Taking that 5-minute walk or calling a friend, just essentially starting somewhere and plan to get that support you may need. Thank you so much for listening to Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein. This episode was edited by Megan Littlefield with production assistance from Carissa Paulson. Please follow Raising Me wherever you get your podcasts and consider a positive rating and review, which helps others to find this message. Thank you also to our sponsor of SweetServe. And wherever you are, I hope you learned something new and get to take a little time for you.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.